Hello, and welcome to the Be Purely Balanced podcast. I'm Dr. Crystal Couture, and today I'm here with a very special guest, grandmother Kaariina Saarinen. Born into a lineage of wilderness thrivers and business builders at the juxtaposition of the Great Lakes of North America, grandmother has a SISU running through her veins, a sense of courage at the threshold leading to the unknown, a sense of truly listening to the heart's teachings, a reindeer knowing 13 moons and solar seasons, 40 years of educational experiences, multiple trainings, certifications, primarily in vocational counseling, advanced learning styles, leadership skills, and energy medicines. Grandmother Kaariina is an adept and scholarly in her wild-hearted nature. Welcome to the show, Kaariina.
Thank you, Dr. Crystal. It's an honor to be here, actually, to spread from the Pacific to the Atlantic.
I would love to invite you to begin our session today with the ceremony.
Let's take a deep breath in, my people, and I would love you to envision that you're sitting in an ancient way. It's called the circle or council. I invite you to envision as you take your seat in the council that you've sat in front of this fire Tatwari thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and that your roots are deep and grounded and centered in the crystal core. And as you take a seat, look up to the heavens that we share, to the star nations, to the great seasons of the sun, to the great wonder and glory of the Milky Way, the galactic core. And allow yourself to realize that you're one small speck in this cosmic ocean. So we say this morning, Tamkashla, Great One, Creator Spirit, shine on us. Wonkin Tonka, Great Buffalo, blanket us with your blessings. Walk between us, visible and invisible ones. Shine deeply in our souls to remind us we are one small speck. In humor and humility, we open the portal to the east, the place of the rising sun, the Apus, the mountains, to remind us as eagles we carry deep visions in our soul bodies for healing, for powerful balancing of the hemispheres of our brain and the hemispheres of this planet. To the south, we call upon the great fiery cross, knowing that today we purify in this central fire anything that does not serve the harmony and melody of the universe. To the west, the place of the setting sun, we call upon the pumas and the jaguars, the leopards, the lions, the great feline nature of the new moon, reminding us we all come from the mother's lodge, the womb. We call upon the north, the aurora borealis, the aurora australicus, knowing that the heart of this universe, the heart of this earth, is held by rainbows, full spectrums, and we are here to be healed and to heal. We call upon this central fire, Tatwari. We bow down and say, thank you, first fire, for igniting our passion for life, igniting our passion for the four-leggeds, the winged ones, the creepy-crawlies, the insectos, the amphibian, the tortuga, the turtles in four directions, and the great swimming ones who agreed never to walk on this planet, the whales and the dolphins, the great sea creatures that keep the secret sounds until we have hearts to listen, the sounds of the whales and the dolphins. Ometel, to the standing ones, we ask that our words be guided by Great Spirit, that we speak to the heart of all beings, that we speak for the awakening and the return to love for all our relations. Welcome to the council, Crystal.
Wow. Oh, that was so powerful. Thank you for sharing that opening.
Thank you for receiving. We've had you in our council for a long time.
Wow. I had tears at the end of that. It was just so powerful, so beautiful, and so fulfilling to feel the directions and to feel the capacity of the universe that you brought in with this blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now that we've established a sacred space and a space where you can share, I would love to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into healing.
Well, I really have enjoyed that question, and it brings me back in our tradition of grandmothers to the grandmothers. So when I was 1 year old, my paternal grandmother, Fanny Amanda Nieminen from Karjala, Finland, passed away July 11th, and I celebrated my first birthday July 18th. My mother and father inherited Nicolette House, a boarding house draft room hotel in the Finn town of Sault Ste. Marie. And I was in the old-fashioned wooden playpen. So I was born in 1948. So 1949, we didn't have plastic playpens and all of these gizmos that we put our children in now. We had old-fashioned wooden dowels that contained the spirit of these babies, including me. And I looked up to the top of the first floor of the hotel, and my mother was hanging laundry, and she was 19 years old. And my grandmother's suite of rooms had been to my right and on the second floor, and there was a light coming out of that window. And I thought everyone could see light like that. And I'm sure many healers that you interview, Crystal, and in your journey in becoming the doctor that you are, we realize that many of us have these natural gifts, and we assume that everyone has these gifts. So as a 1-year-old, I assumed everyone could see that. The light rose over the second floor of the hotel, and the light hit my heart. And I saw when the light diffused, part of the light went to my mother hanging up laundry. And from that moment on, I've loved hanging up laundry. It shed light on that moment. And I felt in that moment the truth of my mother's love was my grandmother's love. And the third ray of her light went to my father, who was somewhere in the hotel, which he had just inherited 7 days prior to that. So I received what's called an enlightened moment, an enlightened initiation to the potency of light. And I learned over and over and over again before I could talk that light was love and love was light, and there was more than enough.
Wow.
The gift of the grandmother.
The gift of the grandmother. I want to talk more about this idea of enlightened initiation, because I think that there are many folks going about their experience and they have these perhaps enlightened initiations but don't know what they are, or perhaps they miss them because our life is so fast-paced and active. And perhaps they don't have a memory from very, very young as you do, but perhaps they have something in their childhood that triggers this idea. And I'd love for you to expand upon enlightened initiation a bit more.
Well, I just want to assure our beautiful people, our listeners, that most people have had enlightened initiations, and that we forget because we're afraid. We're afraid of the full power of the light. And our ego personality has strategies to survive. And the strategies begin preconception, into conception, through the 9 months of gestation, and through the labor and delivery. And so we have within our somatic map, we call it our territory, we have it within our territory a trauma. And the trauma is actually a veil that drops. And the trauma is the story we create to cover the trauma. And the trauma covers up, or the veil covers up the light. Yeah. And so when we say, my darlings, return to love, you already belong. You've sat with us for 1 million years on this planet as a rock, as a crystal, as a jewel, as a gem in the body of Tara. We need that.
Yes.
And so what would it take for us to drop out of the story? And so as grandmothers, we hold this council in circle. We hold these precious ceremonies. We hold them in sweat lodges. We hold them in the forests of our lives, in the jungles. We hold them to call people back through prayer, to say, come home. We love you. We will hold you. We will embrace you until you can melt. And you can melt like a flake of snow back into the original water and water the dry earth. Your drought has been touching our grandmothers' hearts for generations. You're thirsty for love again. Your dry mouth is because you're dehydrated. And on a very scientific level, if you don't quench the thirst, your 80% water dries up and your organs dry up and you start shriveling up and you start dying. And so our call in our prayer is to recognize, choose life, choose the enlightenment, choose your initiation, choose to remember. And our initiations are initiations of the remembrance. And so we have, I'm feeling two parts of my brain functioning. The scientific part is we catalog our journey. And the other part of it is we participate in the ceremony to continue remembering. And it's really a continuum. So there's no cataloging. So can I speak about the strategies?
Absolutely. I'd love that.
So we've discovered as we've journeyed with the sacred womb, and I've now at 70 dedicated my life to the sacred wombs of women to offer, as the four winds offer the 13th Mune key, the blessings on the womb, so that we recognize no matter what age, if we've had children or not, that this is a sacred place and it's a place of creation. And so we've discovered as we've journeyed through this, not through reading a book, by the way. Grandmothers don't do that. I read like one or two books, and I read them and read them and read them for 3 and 4 years because I go into the consciousness of the person that wrote the book. And so I'm very selective and discerning. And so we're really honoring that the book is in you, that you are the testament, you are the revelation. And in our revelation work, we've discovered when we've studied the territories of people's stories that people fight. The first thing is we fight for survival.
Yes.
And it's like put our dukes up. We resist. We're reluctant. And we fight life. And we're really fighting death. So we never fully choose life. And we never fully choose death. So it's not a dignified, enlightened death. It's not a dignified or beautiful birth because we're fighting. And if our mummies fight at conception of us and they're fighting during gestation, wondering if there's enough, if they struggle with anesthetic as we go into labor, they're fighting. And we're born fighting. You know, there's no accident that we have pictures of little babies, brand new babies with their fists. They're fighting.
Yeah, they're fighting.
Then the other thing is we flee. We fly away. We find a go-to. And often because now we're birthing a lot of babies by C-section and partial anesthetic and sometimes full anesthetic. My mama had full anesthetic, which I've recovered from. We realize that in that incision, the baby goes back to spirit. And it goes back to the spirit that's in the room before they were born. Or if the babies were born in a natural setting in a water, then they're less likely to flee. Or if they're born in a birthing room, they're less likely to flee. Or they're born in circumstances where midwives and doulas hold the mummies and the daddies are right there, they're less likely to flee. Yeah. So these patterns of dissociation start right there. The third is freeze. So the freezing is at the very core. I'm in terror. I'm terrified. at the very core that there won't ever be enough. And again, this is mummy. This is a loss of presence, the loss of the giftedness of Brahms' lullaby being sung for 9 months, or the Gaian mantra being held for 9 months as a precursor to the sound and melody of the soul. And so there's freezing. What would it take to thaw that iceberg? And then the last one is fainting. People actually collapse. They faint. We call them faint of heart. I almost wanted to speak in a little bit of an Irish accent, They're faint of heart. They don't have enough blarney. They take themselves very seriously. Take everything very seriously. They don't realize that, well, if you don't make it this time, you make it the next. It could be as easy as that. So there's really those 4 primary ways. They're strategies to continue the war. And if you look at the Tao of War, or you look at those who become generalismos, they become lieutenant colonels in the military, they have all those strategies, I'll freeze them out. I'm not faint of heart. I'll go in there and I'll fight. And I'll make you flee. So we raise a culture ready for war. We raise a culture in defense and offense. And so the grandmother's prayer is no comeback to the council. It's over now. You don't have to fight anymore. It's over.
Grandmother, we see this all the time. We see it in, children. We see it in adults. It's a bit of a way that has become inherent to us. Has it always been that way?
I know it hasn't been. I've sat with elders in many, many traditions. And I chiefed as a woman, hereditary chief from Mongolia, Siberia, Altai, the reindeer clan. I've sat in sweat lodges where I've received direct transmissions from the stars. And we know as star beings that it hasn't always been this way, that there's always been pockets or watering holes for the drought. There's always been lineages who've held them in sacred, secret places, sites that have been covered and buried now by avalanches, by glacial fields, sites that are now melting because of the climate change. There have always been pockets of cultures like the Koki and the Maumas in the high Sierras in Colombia. And these people are coming down. There are still protected people in Ecuador called the Ashwars that are similar to the avatars. James Cameron received a direct transmission to bring it to the full screen, to remind us there's always been a way. Our nervous systems are wired to that mechanical model. Then I have to say, I forgive science for forgetting spirit. And I'll say it again. I forgive science for forgetting spirit. Spirit is the origination of all the faculties of human genius. And the inquiry is, why do we continue to intrude upon and to investigate in a scientific way the anthropology of cultures like the Kalahari, who are in deep need of being discovered in order to be supported and honored and respected, not studied like a chimpanzee in a cage. And so there are pockets of that remembrance still on the planet. And we're deeply in need of coming back to prayer, coming back to the ceremony, coming back to the lodges, to sweat our need to learn more about certifications. And I have a ton of them. I used to say you could put all my certificates up on the inside of an outhouse, and I would sit here and defecate and look at all my certificates. We did that out of scarcity. We did all that training out of scarcity. What we forgot is that the initial initiation, that impulse to learn, was really an impulse to unlearn and to remember. Very different thing. And so it hasn't always been that way. And we're not at war to protect these cultures. We're not at war at all. We're in need of embracing the cultures. We're in need of una embraza. And this is a teaching from Juan Gabriel from the high Andes Mountains, from the Quero Nation. And we say, you know, Juan Gabriel, his daughter wove my mesa cloth, and he was so grateful for me doing a pilgrimage there, 13-day pilgrimage for 13 women to remember love, to return to the harmony and balance of the masculine and the feminine and the masculine. And women fought during that. Women actually fought. No, it's not that we're rude. It's we are thrown into the pit of our own jaguars. We've forgotten our hips. We've forgotten our pelvis. We've forgotten our source and the root of that anger of, I'm here. Why have I forgotten? And we project it on the screen of our mind in relationships and go, oh, what's your fault that we're not on time? No, humanity created time, created standards of measurement, created what we're on right now called zoom, zoom, zoom. You know, we're going fast because we're zooming. And we don't sit on our turtles. We don't take enough retreat. We don't sit down and pray. We don't put our third eye to the ground and say, you know, there are traditions that still hold this as powerful, more powerful than surgery.
Wow. There were a lot of powerful notes that came through in that sharing, particularly the idea of forgiving science and forgetting spirit. And I think a lot of healers, perhaps healers, you know, like myself that are younger than you, sort of get into this place where we really feel that fight between science and spirit, and it's confusing because perhaps we learned the science first or the spirit first, and then the science came in, and there's a dichotomy and a bit of that internal war. I think that's very real for people to be feeling, and navigating that simply by saying, you know, I forgive science for forgetting spirit is hugely powerful. It's invaluable. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And also this idea of the impulse to learn really being an impulse to unlearn, right? I love saying a return to you to my clients, and it's sort of that idea. It's returning to, you know, who they are at the spark of conception, and being in that space of you, and seeing that so much of what we're seeking, so much of what we think we want to learn, so much of what we think is going to help us get to wherever is really about getting us back to who we are. It's like so big, and the way that you phrased it is just absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, grandmother. I wanted to dive into this topic of how do people find an elder? How do people find a grandmother? How do people get tuned in to, you know, maybe their own lineage, maybe something that resonates, you know, because some people I think might just be floating around a little bit, and you know, sort of finding things that they're attracted to, and maybe finding wisdom from elders, but not certain.
Well, you have several questions there. The first is, how do you find an elder, and how do you know with certainty that this person is an elder?
Yeah.
And then there's another question that was woven in the middle of that little sandwich, and that was, how do I find my own lineage and my own roots?
Yes.
So it's a multiply layered inquiry. Thank you for that. I'm going to go with the uncertainty first. The uncertainty is spiritual unrest. There was once a teaching, and I think Paul Hawken actually wrote about it, and he manifested it first, and then he wrote about it. It's important to know the order. You experience it first, the uncertainty. It's uncertainty in your infancy, uncertainty in your childhood, uncertainty in your adolescence, uncertainty in your adulting. And this uncertainty leads us to this unrest. and looking. So I love it when people are looking. I really appreciate when people come to me. I have a coaching bundle, so I've actually put a contemporary languaging around the bundle. It's coaching bundle. So I love it when people come with that unrest. The unrest can be dissipated by finding assurance that you are here, you are welcome, and you are loved. You are you. The assurance comes, and slowly but surely the iceberg melts. Slowly but surely there's lessening of the fighting. Slowly but surely there's no more dissociation or flying away. Slowly but surely the heart strengthens with courage. Slowly but surely there's a settling into the roots. And as we settle down into the roots, which is one of our primary teachings, primary modality in offering the archetypal initiation as a healer, you are your own healer. You are your own maestro or maestro. You are your own inner physician. You are your own science experiment. You are all of that. Now, what would happen if you rooted? And so we teach a very simple rooting protocol, and that is when you sit down, open that place. In Chinese medicine is called the huiyin, or Taoist medicine is the huiyin, between the genitalia and the anus. Open that third leg and send a root down. Now send it down through the foundation of wherever you are, into the soil, down beyond the chemicalized soil to the nutrified soil, into the sedimentary rock that is layers and layers of the archaeology of the soul. It's your soul, your whole, down into the volcanic rock of the igneous shields. Beyond that, know your fire, to the one source of all water that is pure running water, that is still alkaline. And now go even deeper than that and imagine that you were given a boat, a canoe, a boat of your ancestors that takes you to your ancestors, to your lineage, to your root race. It takes you across the other side to the crystal realm, and there's a piedra stone, a crystal. And that crystal is gifted to you at your feet, and you pick it up and you put it on your body where the most forgetfulness lives. And as you put it on your body, perhaps it's your throat, perhaps it's your heart, perhaps it's your solar plexus, perhaps it's your navel, perhaps it's your groin and womb, perhaps it's on top of your head, perhaps it's on your back. Put it there and realize that we've always been waiting for you in stillness, in silence. Feel the pulse of this earth is the pulse of you. We've always held you as capable, as capacitated, whatever the limited English language is. We've held you in the secret hiding place of your soul, called silence. Welcome to your lineage. All colors of the rainbow. Perhaps we were blue like avatars back then. Perhaps we were purple. You know, when I was growing up, we had this crazy song called Purple People Eater.
Right?
Yeah, like, what is that all about? Well, maybe our stories is people need to be eaten in order to return to the purple.
Wow. That's, yeah, the work of getting to the lineage, the work of being one with the universe, being one with the center of the earth is so powerful, and it's so readily available to all of us, right? Yeah.
So you had another inquiry, and that was, how do you find it, Elder? Well, how did you find me? How did Seth Monk find me? You know, how did Carolyn find me? How did Jason find me? How did Alokananda find me? How did I find Alokananda and the Tribal Alliance down in Energia Verde, way down in the jungle outside of Puriscal, Costa Rica? How did I find the kids? We're tracking each other. And we're not like fully recognizable right away. It takes a certain amount of assuredness. It takes a certain amount of certainty to sit next to an elder and say, found you. Yeah, yeah. I found, and would you come here? And would you share this? And would you bring your bundle here? It takes an audaciousness because it's really not science, it's instinctual. It's not even intuitive, it's instinctual. There's a deep bodily knowing. Oh, 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 oh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think for our listeners, it's being tuned in, right? And when connections are made, they're invitations to explore and to explore consciously. And when we do that, we know.
Yeah, let's speak about consciousness. So
Yes.
there is awareness. So I am suddenly aware that I'm human. As an infant, the first level of awareness is, wow, I'm out of my mother's womb. So we go through those strategies. And once we're beyond the strategies, we discover the miracle of our toes, the miracle of a breast, a nipple. If I suck, a latch, and I get this little sucking piece of my mouth going, something happens. So this awareness that mother, woman, mother source, mother, 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 mother is my medicine. And so that's the first awareness, the awakening to the mother, awakening to the return of the mother. And you and I checked your beautiful archives and I looked at some of those modalities. And all of those people, were you to say, who is the origination of the medicine? All of them in a very deep-rooted way would say the mother is, the woman is, the mother is. The point of conception is the beginning of everything. That's the beginning of all the you. And all the you is finally stripped to just one big you. So once that awareness happens, then we awaken. And of course we awaken, and we don't necessarily awaken to the light. Initiation is one step. It's a threshold experience that we gift to people. And ages and stages wheels on our 24 wheels, we say, now you're initiated to the grief. Wow, you're really confused. You don't know who your mother really is. You're adopted or you're put in foster homes. How could that be? Why were you ever given up? Why were you put from foster home to foster home to foster home? What have we done to the mother? And then you go through scarcity. Well, who can I really trust? I'm scarce of loss and faith, and I don't have enough. And then we go to despair of the mother. Oh my God, I gave my baby up. And I can feel the mother instinctually calling me back home and feeling guilty and ashamed. And I feel guilty and ashamed because I'm alive and I must have done something wrong. Elsewise, she would not have given me up. What did I ever do wrong? And then we get annoyed, frustrated, furious, and we can either kill ourselves or murder someone else. And I hold the bundle as do many grandmothers. There's no excuse. It's because of the loss of the mother. So return home to love, to the prayer. Find your mother. And until you find your biological mother or your biological lineage through your mother line, then find the Mother Earth. Go to trees. Go to sweat lodges. Become aware that these teachings are still alive, and we're enlivening them because we're calling the Rainbow Tribe back together. We're calling the youth that are reincarnated. We call it the recycling of the Elder Project. We're actually praying, Tibetan included. Tibetans call it the recognition. So we are recognizing the young ones that are needing to come to ceremony, and they hang out with us. And they're not scared to come into a sweat lodge and cook. You know, they know that they have seeds that need to pop. And they know that they need to come to ceremony, and they go to the jungles for ayahuasca, or they go to Africa, to Gabon for iboga, or they go to Mexico for peyote, or they find that there's traveling maestros and maestras, and they go and find these elders, these traveling people. And I just want to say, on a voice of caution, with the voice of caution, when we're awake and the young people are awakened to the need, it's a very deep, profound need. Be aware there are two major things happening right now on the planet. Women are awakening to the deep sexual abuse that is in their lineage. And men who are carrying these medicines in the ceremonies, be aware. I know you, my spirit brothers, and I love you. It feels as though the spirit fingers are touching women and their spirit fingers. It feels as though these men are wanting a hug or a kiss from this woman. And the women are saying, this is sexual abuse. This is stepping beyond the boundary. No, we are igniting you. Male or female is irrelevant. We are grandmothers and grandmothers praying and grandfathers dreaming. We're dreaming the possibility that you will be receptive to safe love again. And we in our culture of traditions and ceremonialists and shamans are being accused of sexual abuse. And I want us to know that send us back to the fire, but we'll come back. We will come back. And we will say, those who think that we're sexually abusing you, you have been sexually abused. You need to come back to the ceremony and drink more. You need to do more sweat. You need to do it. You need to, as we say, lay it down. You need to remind yourself that all abuse is sexual abuse, that all trauma is origination, is sexual abuse, even at conception. Unless we're immaculately conceived. You know, I was conceived by two virgins. Not very many people can say that. My mother and father never had sex. I was 2 weeks into their marriage and I was conceived. Oh, whoa. How many people can actually say that?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow. So that's an awakening.
That's all a big wow.
That's a big wow. And that's an enlivening of our human capacity to actually be celibate until we meet someone in love, to be given the initiations and the trainings of the elemental wheel to say, the air loves you. You don't need a man. The water loves you. You don't need a woman. The fire loves you and wants you to sit with it. You don't need sex right now. The earth loves you. You need to create in this space. You need to draw. You need to paint. You need to dance. You need to ski and snowshoe. You need to walk. You need to walk. Get back on your feet. Get grounded again. Get off those subways and ride your bicycles. Take a chance on life. You know, yeah, somebody might kill you. It's a great way to die. It's a lesson for a lot of people. It's an agreement. I die riding my bicycle in Vancouver. Poof. Yeah. And all the people say, wow, we better be aware. Motorists, there are pedestrians and there are cyclists. Let's take a look at getting out of our cars. Or let's do group transportation and sing and flash mob a bus or a ferry. My women, we came back from a weekend this weekend in Squamish territory, Ocean, and the women flash mobbed the ferry for an hour and 40 minutes. They did dances and sang just outside the little, you know, shop on the ferry. Continue consumption. Bye, bye, bye. And our women set up their little portable speakers, and we danced, and we danced, and we danced. And I had this beautiful older gentleman who I named grandfather. I give initiations. I say, I'm a grandmother. And I called him grandfather. What's your name? Norm. And one of my young ones is always asking me, well, what's normal? Well, this is now going to be normal. Flash mob, the ferry. And they danced and they sang, and we got people smiling. I had a Whistler Film Festival best on, I would say, on behalf of Whistler Film Festival, we're catching you smiling. How dare you smile? Come back here and smile some more. Hey, come on, you want to dance? You like my girls dancing? You know, and I put a lot of protection around them. I don't want there to be confusion from men who are actually predators. So I laid a big field and the children were safe. And my women learned about safety through a grandmother's prayer. That's the power of the prayer. You're safe when you have a grandmother praying for you. You're safe when you have a Tibetan Lama praying for you. You're safe when you do the mantra. You're safe when you repeat, 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 repeat. I am safe. I can trust this moment. I've never done anything wrong. Therefore, we return to innocence. Now we're awakened, aren't we? Now we're enlivened. Now we're activated. Now we're moving into the next realm. Yay, Abraham Maslow. We're moving into actualization. How can we actualize the greatest destiny of human nature? How can we actualize it now on this planet? We're beyond the tipping point now. We have to come back to purely balanced. We have to harmonize again. We must. So yes, I did finally pass trigonometry and geometry and algebra, chemistry. I never did pass physics. I wanted to be a doctor. I did want to be a doctor. And of course people said, just be a nurse, you're not getting the grades. But I got 72 in biology. That's not enough. You need to have all your maths and sciences. So I worked for a summer in a hairdressing salon. The hairdresser, my mother's hairdresser, said to me at the end of it, he came up to me, he said, you're far too brilliant to be here and be a hairdresser. You could run my shop. In another summer, you'd know exactly what to do. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, so I have both the wilderness and I have the entrepreneurial capacity. That's part of the destiny of humanity. We're capable of doing so much more. We're capable of unlearning to really come back to the conscious science of the law, the sacred law of one. There's only one. There's one woman, and she created the man. And that man was created out of her loneliness and her yearning to have a partner. My blessed listeners, listen to that. Woman creates a man. Yeah. Man, you're looking for your woman. Make sure she studies with her grandmother first. Hey!
Oh, grandmother, this was so lovely today. Before we close, I would love to just allow people to find out how to access you. So why don't you share what's the easiest way to access yourself and your offerings?
Well, first and foremost, you can contact me on Facebook, since people are still working on Facebook, and it's Kaariina Natalie Saarinen. And Dr. Crystal, if you would be so kind as to post that on the archive of this podcast. And you can email me at Kaariina, Kaariina, truth, TRUTH, at hotmail.com.
Beautiful.
The kids put me on Instagram and they call me Instagramma.
I love that.
And the other, those are the contemporary ways to contact me. And I really want to give you the old way. And the old way is to ask tobacco to do a prayer. May I find my grandmother. May I find the grandmother of my heart. May I find the love of my grandmother. That's the old way. And the other old way is to put your third eye to the earth at the roots of a very, very old tree. Find the old ones. And say, I pray to find the roots. I pray to find the roots of my lineage again, knowing that we're all indigenous. We're all native to this land. And the planet has gone through 4 turnings, and this is the 5th turning. Find your truth. Be honest. Start that, and you've already begun. Listen to my prayer during this podcast. Repeat it over and over and over again. New moon and full moon. And some wrinkled up, beautiful old gray hair is going to show up in a coffee shop. Or, yeah, even in Mac's, in McDonald's, we're going to show up. We're looking for you because you said yes. Yes to love. Yes to your prayer. Yes to who you are. You'll find us. I have faith.
Oh. Abundant love and gratitude for sharing this sacred space today. Thank you so much, Grandmother Kaariina.
You can now call me Doctora. I'm Doctora de Más Grande Espíritus. I actually got initiated because I reversed the signature for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. How's that for a calling card?
Wow, that's a calling card.
That's a calling cut.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you so very much for sharing this space today and this interview.